I envision that with shirts, the clothing that we wear, they are probably tagged with some kind of receiver where it can track information on how often you're wearing an item. That will automatically show how loyal you are or how much you love this shirt. And maybe it's linked to your phone. And just like our health app on, say, our Apple, it'll tell you, like, instead of how many steps you've walked, it might tell you, like, how many times you have worn so-and-so of these shirts. So all of your physical items are tagged with digital items that tells you you've got 800 pieces of clothing. 40% of them are pants. The other percent are dresses. And then it will also kind of tell you how often you wear those items.
Welcome back to this week's episode of the CryptoNoobz podcast, where we talk about cryptocurrency and the world around it. I am your host, NelsonRecardo.X, and I'm joined here with my co-host,
Lambo.242.
All right, so on this episode, we're going to be talking about digital fashion and Web3 retail. We have a guest. We have a very special guest here. She is the founder of a brand called Livvium that deals with retail 3.0, AI personalization, immersive commerce, and digital fashion. She's named as a top 100 women of the future, and she is Hong Kong's top 100 voices in Web3. Without further ado, we would like to introduce Miss Olivia Lee. Olivia, how are you doing?
Hi, guys. Good, thanks. Really excited to be on your show today and can't wait to share more with you the idea of digital fashion and the future of retail.
Awesome. It's a pleasure to have you. Literally, before the podcast had started, we and Olivia had like a great conversation about digital fashion and how she's a fan of streetwear. She's actually been a part of these Nike and Adidas drops. It was not. Olivia, just briefly, just tell us a bit about that.
Okay, maybe it would start off better if I can just explain how I got into what I'm doing now. So just like you, Nelson, in 2021, I got really deep into the whole realm of NFTs. More specifically, I worked for a family office that was focusing on things like very alternative assets. So a lot of things like AI infrastructure. He has a lot of VCs in that area, like space exploration, quantum computing, carbon neutrality, all that stuff. And one of the things I came across was really metaverse. And he didn't invest in it himself, but out of everything that kind of dropped on my desk, it was pretty much about the metaverse because I have a marketing background, love fashion, love like culture, that type of thing. So immediately I was like, metaverse, that's the thing it is. And because of that, going into the metaverse, I need clothing. So clothing means your avatar has to be dressed like super good, right? And then default clothing doesn't work for me because you end up running like wearing the same thing as everyone else. So that kind of got me into the NFTs in that sense. I wasn't into the PFPs NFTs, but the clothing NFTs is when it got me into the Nike, the Artifact, the Nike, the Adidas. There's a DNG, all the Tommy Hilfiger, all that type of stuff. So that's what really caught my eye into the digital fashion element of things.
That's crazy. That is amazing. And it's so interesting because in 2021 with that NFT boom of like digital clothing, or this idea that clothes could exist in both the physical realm and the digital realm with the whole metaverse thing was like almost unheard of. And then it became so usual and it became like this thing that everyone just wanted to be a part of. And it's crazy that you got to just jump inside of it and you were already inspired to start just working in it, you know?
It wasn't right away. It did go through many iterations and my journey throughout before I got into really focusing into what I'm doing right now, which is really about retail innovation and also creating my own IP.
So what we would like to know is, who is Olivia Lee and how would you describe yourself to someone who's meeting you for the first time?
Wow, that's a really good question. It's really hard to think of yourself like that. Okay, I am Canadian, Okay. I've lived in Hong Kong for 20 and some years, always worked in different types of industries, holding different kind of roles. I think of myself as a very curious person. I've always been into tech without realizing I was really into tech even very early. And I'm someone who likes to learn by doing. So it's not enough to just read it by the books or just talking about it. In order to get really deep and understanding what it pertains, what it means, I like to get my hands into like the experimenting, building things myself, learning a certain product myself, or understanding a software. So this is something that's been driven, that's been kind of the foundation in leading to what I'm doing now.
Okay.
Right. That actually is quite interesting. Like you seem like a very more hands-on person. Like a lot of people, they like to do more theory work, but it seems as though you're much more hands-on, and that's pretty interesting. Because I know like sometimes this happens, and I don't want to get into like generalists, but you know like how a lot of women are into fashion, but what really struck your interest in fashion and fusing it with the technology? Because you don't really see that a lot. It's like a lot of people either tend to be either or, but like to actually take the fashion aspect and fuse it with the technology, like what inspires you in that realm?
Yeah. Okay. So I've always loved fashion. Just, I like bottom line, love wearing, like expressing myself, being a different person in different environments. Clothing really does become your identity and the way you express yourself and how people act towards you, right? The way you present yourself. So I've always been into fashion in that sense. But then in terms of when I started fusing fashion and tech together, as I just mentioned earlier, it really started out as a journey. I didn't start off to right off the bat to do it. I have, of course, as I mentioned to Nelson before we started filming, I saw some awesome projects along the ways between 2021, 2023. Of course, Artifact was a really good one. Adidas, I was really deep into. So I saw amazing things and I couldn't believe my eyes. I think as someone who loves clothing and loved the experience of shopping and the whole brand story, the idea of loyalty and everything, it really struck a chord when I thought having an NFT brings you deeper into that brand's world where you become a part of that world where you can engage with other like-minded fans. And with something like Adidas, of course, there were things we call like brand DAOs at the time, which is probably obsolete now. But the fact that you can vote and discuss and even suggest on the latest kind of like colorways, where they can launch their next party, if you know a local musician that could be part of their campaigns. It was just kind of thrilling in terms of what this new era of fashion can do, right? But then fast forward to like say now, 2026, as we all know, certain parts of those fashion brands, the dream kind of flattened out. Not to say it's gone forever, but for now, it's not really going that way for these big brands. As you know, Nike sold their Artifact division now as well. So we're left with independent brands. So before I got into creating products, because Livvium is also an innovation studio, it was really about consulting, and I am into the theory part of things. I do enjoy writing papers. I do try to understand it myself and come up with new frameworks and new methodologies and be the observer of what has been going on, take it, synthesize it, and share it with the world as a piece of like white paper, if you want to call it, to help people understand the future of things. So I do like that. But then I decided that there was a time when I was pitching as a consultant because I was doing a lot of metaverse consulting work in 2023 or late 2022 even. A lot of brands were exploring. I was thinking, okay, I have all these great ideas. Like, how do we take something that is beyond a one-time drop? How do you engage those community members so they actively want to create content for you and not just expect and wait for the next drop or the next trade or the next airdrop or the next event? Like, how do you really engage them? But I find that at that time, a lot of projects maybe just focus on launch and they just share a roadmap that we all know didn't materialize, right? So I got tired of pitching ideas and collaborating with other like-minded independent thinkers. Shout out to Krishna, the one, Krishna, he's the one who introduced me to you guys. He's one that I work with very often and super synergy. And we were pitching ideas, and these guys aren't I wouldn't say they aren't falling for it. They didn't see the long vision because they're so focused on the market, right? You drop the meme coin, you drop the altcoin, is it gonna rocket? It was a lot of that stuff, right? So it wasn't about real customer journey. So then in the end, I got tired of pitching all of my great grand ideas. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it myself. And that's how I started becoming first-handed experiencing. And to your point, Lambo, I don't get to build everything because I don't have a tech background, but I do like to learn it and experience it. So a lot of companies at one point, and still now, they want me to beta test their platforms. Like a lot of these companies have platforms that convert a file into right files for Roblox building or for, say, Zepeto or for Sandbox or something. I was thinking, I don't want to use their default product. What if, like their default file, what if I have a file that's my own IP, and not only do I get to experience their platform firsthand, I get to write about it. Naturally, I'll be more invested in it. And I can also use their tool to be part of my build. That way it can become a platform and ecosystem of many builders as we grow, and as also helps me keep the building lean and kind of flat. So there's no rush to launch anything and make money right away, because this is not really the right time if your product's not right.
I like that. I like that. Especially what you mentioned, like the community aspect, because a lot of people kind of overlook that. Like when you talk about, like, I just call it some big brands like Nike, Adidas, and all that. Like you have people who are like super fans of those brands. Just where you said, like the brand DAO, like having a voting system for what people want. That is something that I think a lot of brands don't consider, because they'll drop anything. Then the people will start complaining about it. They get lower sales because they wasn't really listening to the customer base. So yeah, I like that. I like that. I love that concept, really.
Yeah. I would like to dig into how you talked about like independent brands, how initially what had happened was the bigger brands got into the whole digital system, because I'm trying to not say it the way that I'm thinking of saying it, but for lack of better words, it was more like just going along with the hype, almost like a cash grab. Like, hey, everybody is interested inside this thing. Hey, let's get into this thing or what's not. And I think it's so sad what happened to Artifact. Artifact, I followed them when they were, just getting out of there and what's not. And all of their drops are so incredible, so amazing, like absolute fire. But when they actually got with Nike, initially we thought that it was a good thing. And unfortunately, when Nike was finished, Nike was finished. That was the end of Artifact. I think that it's great that now we've gotten back to the basics when it comes to independent brands actually doing this, because it's not a knock to the larger brands. It's just that for the larger brands, they're doing it more or less for the baseline profit. We could be honest. They're doing it for the profit. Now, the independent brands, it's not that they don't want profit. It's just they have a certain love for it, a certain interest, a certain goal that reaches. And I loved how you talked about it wasn't just about following a roadmap that wouldn't materialize. It was about actually bringing the community together and creating something new and special for their community. So I want you to tell us a bit more about Livvium. Like, tell us, what is Livvium? How did it begin? And like, what all does Livvium offer?
Okay. All right. So Livvium started out as an avatar. Okay. So as I mentioned, my last role, I was doing and creating a lot of projects for different realms in Web3 during the crypto hype. So like literally churning projects nonstop. So I got my baseline, understanding how to do economy design, mapping out the flow, creating incentives, that type of thing, right? So I really enjoyed it, and I realized I had a knack for it. But since then, when, like bear market comes, lost my job, didn't know what to do, right? So I was a little bit saddened by the fact that I lost this role that I really, truly enjoy. But at the same time, I went back to things that kind of kept me, just sort of fill in the time when I was deciding what to do next. And at the time, it was still very early. I think it was still 2021. Like I said, I instantly understood the metaverse and I was so obsessed with it. And I promise you at that time, when you try to look up the word metaverse, there's only one stock photo. Like it's the same stock photo across the board. I can still picture it right now. And there was only two people who were really writing about the metaverse, right? So that's Matthew Ball and Kathy Hackle. Those two are the ones that really kind of got my interest in it, read all the books and everything. So then I want to write about it, but I was too camera shy. So right now I'm chill here, like camera, like looking at myself and the camera, but I absolutely hated it before. So that was the start when I discovered an avatar that can just become me. So she can embody me. So we're going back to the idea of digital identities, right? So I named her Livvium. I thought it would be like a cool name that's an extension of my name, Olivia. And also because she gets to be who I'm not. So she wears these like latex cat suit and she has like half shaved pink hair, things that I would never be able to do in real life, right? So through her, I used her to explore all of these metaverse platforms. And back then there were plenty of experience to go through. That's where I racked up my 100 and more brand experiences that I've actively been in. So through there, I think I was very early in the game. So a lot of people started paying attention to my account and everything's firsthand. So I don't regurgitate people's news about, oh, Tommy Hilfiger just bought a piece of land in Decentraland and there's a metaverse fashion week. Like, no, I actually stayed up, wore the outfit, hung out, try to buddy up with other friends on Discord to come meet me at the party and everything. So I was fully deeply into this whole digital life and digital identity. So that was Livvium. But then soon after, I started thinking about my own experience. So over 20 years working across different industry, even from banking, luxury brands, fundraising company, education, banks, private investment, etc. It gives you a very wide understanding across many different industries from macro level to micro level down to like the people at the sales floor, that type of thing. So I combined the two. So that's when Livvium became a consultancy. And I was very much focused on metaverse at the time. And it was great because a lot of people needed help. There were like 200 and more metaverse platforms at the time. Every gaming studio decided to switch their like Grand Theft Auto kind of style and themes and make it into shopping malls instead, So there was a lot of companies that wanted to get in and understand which platforms how does it work, all that stuff, right? So that's the metaverse thing. And Livvium became the co-founder. So sometimes you'll see on my bios that I'm the co-founder of Livvium because staying true to the idea of digital and physical, and now with AI agents and all that kind of stuff that I'm sure we'll talk about, it really makes sense to have Livvium as part of my brand origin, right? So since then, the metaverse kind of play kind of flattened out. And of course, I also understood that we started calling it immersive commerce. Now we're going to be calling it agentic commerce. I follow through all of the trends. I can get deep into if you want. But the idea is, it's really hard to solve. It's really hard to get companies to think about these immersive experience where you're fully engrossed in the digital world when we cannot solve current problems right now, especially in the sentiment of all of the retail settings. A lot of businesses are not doing well. For example, Hong Kong had 13 H&M stores at its top peak, and we are dwindling down to one store left by end of this month. That is how big this kind of retail situation is affecting us, maybe in the cities like Hong Kong. So instead of like pitching H&M to do metaverse, by the way, they do have lots of metaverse exposure on Roblox and stuff. It makes sense for me as a strategist to think about how to solve current problem, like today's problem, like grassroots problems. Don't pitch them this grand, far-fetched idea of living in the metaverse. Like, yeah, we get it. Gen Z, Alpha, they're our next consumers. They're all gaming. I get it. I have kids myself, so I totally get it, right? But how do I solve their problem now? So it brought back to understanding how I feel as a shopping person. And I've always shopped online. Like 90% of my purchases are online, like down to shampoo even, right? So what's my biggest pain point? It's buying 2 to 3 items of the same item because I don't know what my size is. And I'm a pretty standard size, but I can fit a small, medium, or large, I promise you, So it was about grassroots problems, like bringing it back to how do I solve today's problems so I can build up that journey with the client and slowly introduce them to all of the interesting tech stuff as it unfolds. And it's evolving all the time on a daily basis even. That's why I have the brand I co-founded with Zoha Khan to test all of these, right? And that's why it's a very slow burn. So by the time when these brands are ready, I can bring them into digital clothing, engagement, AI-enabled tools to help them solve, and then bring them deeper into something that I guess I'm going to call it agentic commerce now, but bring them deeper into this immersive world, which is my end goal.
Awesome. Awesome. Trust me, a lot of what you said is stuff I can resonate with. Like, the reason, like, for example, Nautica is my favorite brand. Right? The reason is because the size that I wear, Nautica just wears the best fitting size for me. Every other brand, when I buy that size, it fits a little awkward. And just, I love Nautica. So that was always like, even when you mentioned like you buy 2 and 3 the same shirts, it's times where I bought sweaters and it's like, okay, I got to get 2 sweaters because I'm sure one is going to be too small. The next one might be just right, you know? So yeah, those are things I definitely could relate to. But let me ask you, like, with the whole advent of AI, right? AI is coming into everything. Everyone's trying to adopt AI. How do you think AI will change modern retail, and how do you think it'll change the experience for the average customer?
So I'm going to focus on, I think, the experience side of things more than talk deep. Well, no, I wouldn't talk deep. But in terms of like the supplier logistic management, that's not really my area, right? But how AI can enable a user to have more confidence when they shop. So if you say you like Nautica, which is a very international brand, Lambo, do you buy things online or do you buy it in store?
Online.
Yeah. So when you buy things online, you generally have an idea of what size and fit you're going to go for. And because Nautica is more like a casual brand in some ways, so we're not talking about women's bandage dresses where it has to hit the right spot or anything, you know? So I think there are some leadways to that. But regardless, the problem still exists, you know? So how AI can enable better experiences, better fit, and better sizing, that's sort of the mission statement I have for Livvium currently. Now, I have bigger plans for Livvium, but there's no point just going off track. Right now, for the next 2 years or more, I'll probably focus on just AI sizing and getting those brands and companies to be utilizing it. You know, so with AI sizing, this is something that I think is going to be very interesting. Now, it's not perfect because it requires like training the model, machine learning, and naturally getting data. But there's also the barrier of having the user, you as the customer on the other side of the laptop, the screen, to feel confident enough to share your details and information such that it can gauge and give you the right sizing, right? So there is a learning curve for sure. But that's why it's all about education and having podcasts such as like this to get more of the message out. But with AI sizing, imagine that you can turn on your camera and you can just like put in your height because you need something definite to kind of gauge how tall you are, etc., right? And your gender could affect your sizing as well. And you step a few steps back, and in front of your camera, you could just do like a quick turn, like less than 5 seconds live time, and it will tell you what is your perfect fit and your perfect size. And it will also give you all of your measurements, like in terms of like your shoulder width, the circumference of your neck, your torso, your hips, all that kind of stuff. And it becomes information that you as the user can also store and that you can bring aboard across different platforms when you start shopping across other platforms. And the idea that those information is owned by you, ideally, that is how I would like it to work, but it's another issue if it's going to happen this way, such that you feel confident. You also bring in some Web3 elements. You can feel rewarded by giving your information out there to help other companies use your data to shape their size charts better. And this slow kind of path will generally make all of our shopping experience a bit more clear, more confident, and especially when you're more confident about what size you're buying. You're not buying 2 or 3 and you're returning the other 2 or 3. The reason why we buy 2 or 3 is because now, in order to stay competitive, a lot of brands enable free shipping coming straight up to your door to pick up your packages and stuff. But the cost of that and the detrimental, what happens to the environment is also very detrimental. And half of the time, the reshelving cost is very expensive. And I didn't know this because I'm not in the fashion industry per se. They don't shelve it back. Like some, they just toss it aside and burn it, right? So these are all of the things that happen because of keeping costs down, So this is where I think using AI tools could help better one's shopping experience. And if we're going deeper into things like agentic commerce and such, where technically each one of us have multi-twins of ourselves framed in the way that we think is most useful to us. So your different personas, like one may be your sports persona, one is all work, one is a crossover, one's my mom's profile, like where I keep track of my kids, etc. When you have the sizing, that is the only way the agentic commerce element can actually work, because what's the point of having an agent help me shop with, say, the brand's agent discussing my style and stuff if we can't compact and get the size right?
So earlier before the podcast started, we were kind of geeking out about digital clothing and t-shirts that actually have the AR components a part of it, the XR, as well as NFC chips and everything like that, right? And you were telling me about a particular project. Could I hear a little bit more about that project? And you even said that you have a demo about it, or am I wrong,
Yeah,
right?
sure. So I'm very excited to share with you. So this project actually has been ongoing for a little while. Not super proud that it's been taking so long for it to actually launch. But between my co-founder and I, her name is Zoha Khan, we don't have a rush to launch it, because in the end, we want to create a product that makes sense, that we're so proud of, and there's no rush to sell it. We want to sell it. We'd love to have people wearing the shirt and talking about it. Like, who wouldn't, right? But the idea is to build a solid foundation, the infrastructure, the system behind it, the storytelling. And then, of course, it would be good to have lots of people notice it and stuff. So you can call it, like, in my opinion, so Zoha might look at it a bit different, but I would like to think of it as an extension of Livvium. So Livvium is one of the person who's designing the usage of it, right? But the idea is it's like an experiment. It's a research project. It's also a walking demo of all of the capabilities that between Livvium and between Zoha's company called Alara, she's a digital fashion designer and digital fashion house, and our many partners who made it happen, So it's like a walking piece of product that is live. It's always evolving and it's always growing. That's why it's called exposed layers. So the idea is the t-shirt is a growing walking network of all of the tech and quote unquote Web3, Web2 crypto possibilities. And it will always unfold and there will always be something new as long as we find awesome people to work with. So that's exposed layers. It is designed by Zoha. It's beautiful. It's very much focused on streetwear and it has a denim rib cage. So happy to show you guys more if you want me to share or demonstrate or anything here.
Please.
But okay, let me see. So I'm gonna share screen and then I show you the store. Okay, so we call it more than a shirt and it keeps evolving. So it has a story that layers through AR, NFC, and design. So we have a 3D store. I'm gonna skip the trailer. It's actually much faster than I expected. Okay. Should I have the music?
I like this. I like it.
It reminds me of like the hype of the NFT days. The ripped jeans is the rib cage, and that's like really, really like very artistic. Like it so
Yeah.
far.
All credit to Zoha. She created something beautiful. So this is a 3D store, and the idea is to give the user who may not experience all of these 3D stores through different websites to see it for the first time. So we have these little pins here that you can bring you to see the inspiration behind the design. And then this is the one shirt here, the shirt here. And then all of our partners. So we want to use it to highlight all of our partners who made this happen for us. So this is the store. Then, let me see, sorry. I think this is all I'll show for now. So you have an idea of how the items look, because the other part is hard for me to demonstrate right now because it's for the user. So that's the 3D store, but it's also based on Shopify as well, because it's back to my whole idea of experimenting firsthand. It's best to use a platform that's used by a lot of people. So hopefully we can also enable some of the things we're doing through exposed layers and help these other stores that's based on Shopify to do similar things. So in the store, the regular experience, you can call it, we do have things like the AI sizing, also the XR experience where you can press the button and also see the item imposed in whichever environment you want it to see. Then that's the store. Now, about the shirt, as Nelson and I were so excitedly sharing, is that the physical shirt has an AR catch. That enables someone to scan it and something will pop up. So right now, I'm not going to reveal what it is because we want the people to experience it on their own. But I'll tell you that it is like, it enables a lot of storytelling, and I think the idea is to bring connection between people. So aside that the design is really cool, but in my idea, my vision is like, if say I'm wearing it and Nelson, you're like, oh, hey, that's a really cool t-shirt. The next level is, oh, hey, open your camera and check this out. So the minute you open your camera, it will reveal something. Or maybe it's a new art or filter where we can experience it together for the first time. So this enables a lot of opportunities to work with other, say, filter designers and other digital fashion designers to enable them to have a walking canvas as well. So that's one of the vision behind the shirt. And then it also has a NFC chip. So when you tap it, it brings you into the owner's portal. And in the owner's portal, it has what we call a digital product passport, or the twin of the shirt, you can call it, the forever digital receipt that tells you, where is made, how do you care for it. These are some behind the scene images only the owners can access. You can authenticate it. And we also hope to explore other features, things that I'm pretty sure both you, Lambo, and Nelson, you've already heard of and know about back in the Nike Adidas days when they had those Discord channels and stuff. The ability to chat with one another and just talk how cool the shirt is or what's going to happen next. We want to do it still. I think it's actually a really great way to engage customers. Like when you're a true fan and when you really love something, I'd love to give my 2 cents on what I love about the shirt or not, or taking pictures with other people wearing the same limited edition shirt. Like I think all of those ideas still exist. It's just that they were launched too soon, too fast, not in the right kind of market, and didn't have the financial support, and the mass market didn't understand it. This is why it didn't work. So we hope to be launching all of those features slow but steady, so that's exposed layers.
Thank you. I love it.
Thank
I
you.
like it. Why do you think digital fashion and immersive commerce is becoming so relevant in previous years? Like, what do you think about
Okay.
it is really like changing the minds of customers and open their minds towards it?
Well, don't forget, I'm more like a futurist. I love thinking about the possibilities. This is also why I have to scale back and do more realistic tools and solutions to kind of move this onwards, right? But I mean, the idea of digital fashion is exactly what I mentioned when we first kicked off our conversation. It is an extension of yourself, and it is an extension of your identity online. So believe it or not, we all have different personalities and identities. So of course, even in real life, we might have different identities depending on what kind of environment you're in, right? But say on digital, the fact that we are even on social media, a lot of people are curating their life as they want you to see it, right? So people are like fitness influencers, some people are foodies, etc., right? So digital identity has existed for actually a good 10 years or even more since mobile phones, iPhones came out with the screen, and since social media came up. So that's actually really what kind of catapulted all of this. So we're all very comfortable with digital identities. But then if we're talking about digital fashion, there's also different levels of different fashions. So I'd like to call it, I guess, 3 types of digital fashion that I can share with you. One, I would like to call it as in like in real life digital fashion, which is what my shirt is pretty much based on in this stage. We are working on gaming elements, but on this stage, it means it has a physical shirt. Your touch point is the physical element first, and then it will have little gentle nuances that gives you a hint of the digital side, which is probably the AR and the fact that you tap on it and it brings you online. Okay, it's actually not that fancy in my opinion, but that's how I would think of in real life digital fashion. And it also has things like digital product passport. So as again, my shirt, I would call it in real life digital fashion. And then the second type I like to call it is called online digital fashion. So that's purely filters. That's just people on, say, Snapchat or Instagram where they can have an item imposed on their body. So that to me was probably the real definition of digital fashion for myself when I got into it. So I was really deep into the whole DressX and 010 apps and paying money to get really cool futuristic items to superimpose onto my body. So it's maybe in a bodysuit or swimsuit, just so I can get some kind of reaction when I post it online. No utility, And the last one is unreal life digital fashion, which I would say is deep into the gaming world. So those kind of skins and little trinkets or, that's put onto your avatar that either lets other people know your status in the game or it helps you level up within the game. So those are the 3 levels of digital fashion that I think of. And that's not even talking about softwares and any of that stuff. Like that's the real tradition of digital fashion, but not even talking about that. But I think why it's really important is because, as I mentioned, it's just about the amount of people who are actually using these integrated virtual platforms, such as Roblox, Minecraft, all of these things. The numbers are phenomenal. And I think this is also why a lot of these brands were so deep into exploring the metaverse in, say, 2020, end of 2022, 2023, was because that was appealing for them. Or they were just jumping into the hype wagon as well, knowing that, oh, Tommy Hilfiger had it, now I gotta try, etc. But they tried, and thank goodness they tried. Otherwise, that wouldn't lead me to gain my perspective and opinions and knowledge as I do now, right? But the idea is that a lot of these, I wouldn't even say Gen Z, Gen Alpha, because everyone games at some point, like they're, depending on what kind of game you. So I think it's just the extension of our reality, basically,
When it comes to the metaverse, so earlier the metaverse was positioned as this new technology where people can now live a separate life more inside of the digital realm. At least that's just how they position the metaverse. Now, definitely things have kind of flattened out. You don't really hear much talks about metaverse. All the people on LinkedIn that were metaverse experts have changed their LinkedIn status, their LinkedIn bios now. So first and foremost, I want to know, is the metaverse still a thing? And it's a 2-part question, because what's the difference between the actual metaverse and just a regular video game? Because just as you mentioned, a lot of these companies are going into Roblox. Roblox is a technical metaverse, and even Fortnite is a technical metaverse, right? But they're video games. Like, help us to understand the difference between the metaverse and the video games, and tell us, where is the metaverse right now and where is it actually going? Like, does it actually have the ability to come back as that previous version that was the whole Second Life type situation that everyone wanted?
Okay. Well, you may need to remind me certain portions of the question you're asking, okay? Because this is a big
Yes.
one, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
So now my definition of metaverse would be probably more the terminology that I learned and studied when I first got into this space about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, as I mentioned, when I started reading up about it. pretty much ahead of everyone else, I would imagine. But the idea of it in a nutshell, the metaverse is not just a place or a mindset. It's about like having the idea of something that's decentralized. There is the Web3 element about ownership. There is the idea of interoperability. Don't forget, there's also hype of NFTs, right? So the fact that you can buy something and you can display it and carry it around into different quote unquote metaverse, as you mentioned, Roblox, etc. The idea is that you can take an item. So if I bought something on, say, Roblox, the fact that I can, zap myself into, say, the sandbox wearing the same item and it will automatically convert. And any conversation or awards I've won or history or things I've earned, it's persistent. So I can carry that back to my original place, Roblox, or my home, my own metaverse if I want, right? So there's the idea of interoperability. It's the idea of ownership. It's the idea of persistency. And it has to be live time across many different zones at the same time. In my opinion, I think it was focused more on entertainment and education. And it's like you said, it's really kind of like your own world, right? So this is sort of the old definition of my understanding of the metaverse. Now, to answer your question about, is there still the metaverse? It's probably say that there are elements like tenets about it that it still exists, but then we've moved away from the original definition. Why? Because we all know it's not possible. The idea of you and I owning our items and having full ownership in a decentralized kind of way, not working. Why? Because as history already shows, we've got the big corporates, Google, Meta, all already have a large stake in what we actually want to own. So forget that, right? But that doesn't mean you cannot create this second life. If you manage it and plan it, you can still take that away from what's already known about you by some of these massive companies. Like I don't know. So the idea of the metaverse, like, is still there. It's still, but it's reiterated. So before, when I was really deep into it, we're like, oh, no, Roblox, Minecraft, they are League of Legends, whoever, like they're not part of the metaverse because they didn't have the tenets of what makes it the metaverse. So again, taking an item you buy or you create it and you can move it along into different worlds and back and forth. And, my status in Roblox can take me and upgraded my status in, say, Minecraft or whichever world I happen to be in. That's the ideal, right? It didn't work because it's not interoperable. And it's not interoperable because all of the formats, the resolutions, people's different like speed network, like it's not possible, right? However, maybe with this whole, evolution of AI, you have many AI agent bots working behind all of these different platforms to make all of these formats so it's compatible across different platforms. Like who knows? Like it could very well be a possibility. It's like humans are not going to do it. That's for sure. Right. And another thing about why metaverse didn't work was also because of the ownership. If I was to create something on Roblox and I bought something on, say, another platform and I tack it onto my original item and then I sell it, who owns that and who owns what? So it was this whole kind of idea of the provenance of it, which is kind of weird because if it's on blockchain, technically we should be able to see where it kind of happened, But anyways, so now that we moved on to immersive commerce, so that was sort of the new name we started calling it, right? So that became a more looser term. It involves a little bit, in my opinion, it involves a little bit more about like spatial experiences. It involves a little bit about the physical experience into digital and vice versa. It wasn't focused so much on, I say, assets, maybe. It's just a looser term in that sense, right? So overall metaverse, there are people still talking about it. Even myself, I still want to study more about how this can, but we also know the term is lost its original definition. Did I miss any other question you had from me?
No. I think you answered it because The metaverse, its definition was for it to be interruptible, this whole digital space that we all as humans could just walk into. We'll be able to purchase our items, we'll be able to see each other, meet each other, all that good stuff, right? And they did take steps towards that. However, when they took those steps towards it, they found out, yeah, this isn't going to work. I even remember when they had the portal in two different sides of the world and you could actually see the next person that was, so there was an artist that did it.
There was an event. Yeah. I think it was New York and somewhere in Europe. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that they took it down because people were like sticking up their middle fingers and doing a whole bunch of things. It's like,
Humans just find ways to entertain themselves.
yeah, I feel human psychology is like, you know what, if you bring a new technology, I want to see what I could do to possibly break it. And I'm not too
You
sure if
do
that's
need that.
just,
You need to stress test.
yeah, I think we like a little bit of chaos, you know?
Yeah, because you see, like with the AI videos, you could use AI videos for so much. Dudes had Martin Luther King and Malcolm X in wrestling matches. Like, this is what they're using AI for. Like, this could change the world, but that's their priority. They want to watch wrestling matches with world leaders and different historical figures, Genghis Khan and all that. Like, this is what they're doing.
Use it for good usage. Imagine if you actually be in a school environment setting and you can really immerse yourself in the environment, having someone to embody that and see it in real time, or not even real time, to learn and study history. Those are the real usages of it. Those are the things that I'm more interested in. So I try not to listen to any of the fluff and like people using all that AI to create fake news and stuff. That's just entertainment. Their goals are different. Mine is to use it to make our real life better, ideally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I agree. Let's make us more efficient as humans. So, Olivia, with all this data, and you mentioned earlier, like where you're training AI models, right? How should shoppers feel about data protection and personalization when using AI for like shopping and for purchasing clothing, sizing, stuff like that? How should they feel about the protection of their data and privacy?
Wow. Okay. Now, I can't speak for everyone because everyone's like threshold of this kind of security and privacy, it's very different, right? I'm not saying I'm a risk taker, but I feel like there are certain things that you cannot withhold because you need that information in order for the company who's launching that product or software to learn about your information, real people information, so they can create a better product. That's to not have my personal information, but I'm okay for my sizing information. If it's just like my height, my weight, my shoulder length, that kind of stuff. If it helps come with like a larger set of data that can be used for manufacturer and companies and brands so they can look at their own size chart and how they come up with their cutting material and the cutting board to come up with better products and fit, I don't see there's any problem. But that's just me. It also requires your own kind of like security hygiene, like how you keep your own data safe. You cannot just expect someone else, the company who's actually hosting the data, to keep it all safe. We all know that there are lots of these kind of threats out there, but it takes two ways. So I'm okay in terms of how I release my data. Recently, there's this trend on Instagram and TikTok that's showing your 10 years prior, 2016 versus 2026, right? Did you guys see about that? Did you
Yeah.
hear? So I thought it was like, maybe for someone like me, I was more nostalgic. Oh, that's kind of cool. I haven't looked at my Dropbox for 2016 pictures in a long time. Like, let me pull one up and just see it, and I posted it, right? But then you hear a lot of other news circulating that is just a trend created by companies to kind of really lock in your facial features. So they really have access to how you look 10 years prior, 10 years now, and that type of thing. And it didn't really bother me. I feel like you can't win it all, but that's not to say you shouldn't find your own ways to protect your own, like your passwords, your vital information and stuff. Ideally, if we talk about Web3 stuff, which I don't want to touch upon today, is the whole idea of the ownership. Like, I'll give you data and access, but then I should also be rewarded for giving you access. And the minute I exit using your platform, that data no longer is kept onto your network but it belongs to me. I like that idea, but is it actually realistic? Probably not.
Especially like I don't know if you see the trend where people are like making cartoon images of themselves, and what they do are like they're describing AI, make a picture, a caricature describing what I do. And I was having a conversation with a friend. He was like, "Oh no, I'm not putting my picture in AI. That's that, the third." And I was like, dude, like, come on, you have a driver's license. He's like, if they want you, if the quote unquote big brother wants your picture, they have your picture. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is quite interesting. And I think it's just that your personal preference, like you say, just for how much you put out there, how much information you put out there.
Yeah, like for me right now, my current goal is to get on all of these AI platforms, right? So I do want my information, not where I live, obviously, but like get on it. So you can't like win it all. Like, oh, I need to stay private. I don't want anyone to know, you know, but then I want the platforms to be able to have my information, so I could be searched because that is the new way how we search things now.
And definitely with this whole new, I think it's called AEO, something like an AI version of SEO.
Yeah.
So basically, it's like now if you really want to be searched, before time you used to get searched with SEO so that you could allow Google to allow you to be searched very easily. Now you want ChatGPT to pull up your information when someone is searching for you, or Claude or Gemini or something like that. So it's like the AI is asking for your information, but especially depending on your brand and your career goals, what's not you would
Yeah.
actually want the AI to have that information. What I'd like to know is, right, we've talked a lot about fashion, we've talked a lot about e-commerce, we've talked a lot about shopping. And earlier you said that you're a futurist, right? So if you could design the future of shopping, what would that experience look like in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. I envision an idea where it can go from digital to physical, physical to digital. So in that sense, it's very much the digital twin element. This is the part that I'm most interested in. So I envision that, with shirts, the clothing that we wear, they are probably tagged with some kind of receiver where it can track information on how often you're wearing an item. That will automatically show how loyal you are or how much you love this shirt. And maybe it's linked to your phone or whatever gadget that becomes our main device of communication. And just like our health app on, say, our Apple, it'll tell you, like, instead of how many steps you've walked, it might tell you like how many times you have worn so and so of these shirts, right? So all of your physical items are tagged with digital items that tells you as your digital closet. You've got 800 pieces of clothing. 40% of them are pants. The other percent are dresses, right? And then it will also kind of tell you how often you wear those items. Now, the purpose of that is, on the other hand, the brands who sold you those products also have the ability to know how often you're wearing something. And that could be equivalent to how loyal you are to a brand. So instead of you signing up, giving your email, getting 10%, automatically be treated as a VIP, which we all know is not really a VIP, you are actually rewarded or treated by, or having a personalized experience by how often they see you wear something. So your data, like 10% of your clothing is Nautica. So you imagine when you're wearing an item and you walk into the Nautica store at your favorite, mall, and it might pop up in their LED screen and it'd be like, hey, Lambo, welcome to our, flagship store today in Bahamas, like whatever your shopping mall area would be, right? It may say something like, that shirt you've had your eye on, we got it for you and it's in store. Would you like to try it now digitally in front of this monitor? Or would you like to try it physically into the changing room, right? And then Lambo will be like, no, I'm just going to try it on. I know what shirt this is, right? So then he can try it on. But before that happens, it might be like, hey, you've worn this shirt like 1,000 times in the last year since you bought it, okay? Like, I don't know how that happens, but you wore it 1,000 times, right? So we're going to reward you. This shirt is already wear and tear, right? Do you want to trade it in and get a new one? and we'll take 20% off, or you get a free shirt. I think little instances, like little personalization details like that is how I see the future of shopping and retail and engagement. That's how you bring people deep into your world. It's advantageous for both sides. You get to know more about your own shopping habits and your preferences and use that data to make your future shopping experiences even better. And at the same time, the brand who sold you the shirt can also have a lot of interesting data that they can use to target you in a very personalized way.
I would say that is, wow, that is incredibly cool. If my shirt was to say, you have worn this shirt 1,000
Forget 1,000.
I would feel targeted because my shirt is saying, yo, bro, it's time to let me go.
Yeah, it would send you a message. It was self-destruct. It was self-destruct after you hit a certain amount.
Buy some clothes.
Yeah. Wash me, please.
Yeah.
But
Imagine
you know
clothes
what I
telling
mean.
you how much your clothes ain't washed or when you need to wash. This is like, all right. So, Olivia, for any young creator who's curious about AI, digital fashion, immersive retail, and they want to get their feet wet or they just want to understand it so they probably can make their next move. What advice would you give them, or like what do you wish you would have learned kind of early in the game?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for anyone, doesn't have to be young, anyone who's just curious and interested, the time is now. Like there's really no excuse to not put time aside and really discover something new that you may have a passion for, right? A lot of these tools, there's a lot. I mean, I even dedicate quite a bit of time to seek out new tools. And some are winners. Some you bypass their like 10-day free trial and then you didn't even understand how to use it and they're asking you to pay. But a lot of them are on beta mode, so you are able to use a product for an extended period of time to understand it and to find good usages for it, right? So I think it's no better. Like the best thing is to go and do it. Like nobody can force you, you know? So if you're interested, go and do it, right? It's all there, right? The second thing is if you want to get into the business, whatever you want, like even if it's AI related, you want to join a startup, you want to join a big tech company, you want to meet other like-minded independent and entrepreneurs like myself, there's no harm to reaching out and making the connection and just starting a conversation. In fact, that is how I connected with my co-founder when we created Exposed Layers because we had a common interest and she reached out to me because I was talking about digital fashion a lot at the time. And we just reached out and connected and we stayed in touch. And then when the idea came to start a project, naturally she was the one that I connected with. So there's always like just, typical, like recommendation and advice. Go out, put yourself out there and talk to people. But for myself, what really worked for me was I did it, I recorded it, and then I shared it. I wanted to learn more about the metaverse. Not a lot of people were talking about it back then. So I did it. I filmed this. I documented everything. Then I wrote about it. And that triggers the cycle of a deeper understanding of what is it about, at least my own understanding.
That I like that.
Well, Olivia, so we're nearing the end of the podcast. First and foremost, we would just like to thank you for like all the knowledge that you've shared with not just us, but also our audience. And, I feel as if that someone would have been able to understand the metaverse better, retail 3.0, agentic commerce. Was that correct? Agentic commerce?
Mhm.
And of course, digital fashion. So what I'd like you to do is just give us like some of your social handles. Like where could we find you if we want to learn more from you or we want to connect with you?
Awesome. So you can find me on LinkedIn, where I'm most active, or I will start again. You should say I took a little break. You can find me at Olivia Lee on LinkedIn. Then on IG, you can use the handle Livvium. So across all of the major platforms like Twitter, YouTube, IG, Livvium, you'll be able to find me.
Awesome. Well, We'd just like to thank you, the audience, for just coming back to yet another episode of the Crypto Noobs podcast. Once again, if you have any questions, you could always message us on any of our social media platforms. And, once again, just keep in touch with us, and we'll be sure to continue to share new things about what's going on in the crypto industry and what's going on in digital finance and even what's going on in fashion. All right. You guys have a great night. Peace.